In terms of writers in particular, what makes them interesting characters, I think there's a lot of factors, but one of the big ones being that writers, are pursuing something that's kind of a crazy bet, I guess. It's a long shot, to say the least, to try to spend all this time working on a book and writing, and it's the idea that it might someday pay off and that people will really read it and be moved by it is really powerful. But at the same time, it's a very slim possibility, for even the best writers that's ever going to happen. So that's one of the things I really like about writers as characters, because they have to be a little reckless and a little egotistical and kind of fun in that way. I had tried writing 3 different books over the course of 5 or 6 years, and then watched them all kind of fall apart for different reasons in different ways. And I think what finally happened was I got really frustrated. I don't know if it was. I don't think it was. I wish I could say that it was, some sort of arrogance or confidence that led me to be able to, try to break those rules the way I did. But I think ultimately what happened was I was looking at the books that I had tried to write and they weren't working. And what I realized eventually was I was holding back in so many different ways in the book, because I was trying not to break certain rules, trying to avoid the things that I kept wanting to write about because I wasn't sure I was allowed to, or trying to avoid the types of writing that I love as a reader, but thought maybe I wasn't old enough yet or wasn't good enough yet to pull off as a writer. So I think what finally happened was I just got frustrated, and I just said, I've now tried this 3 times and it's failed, and I might as well, try again and put everything I have behind it, not wait for somebody to give me permission to do the type of writing that I want to do. On self-publishing, I have mixed feelings about it, as I think most people do. On the one hand, I think it's great that there's a way for people who just, sort of love writing and aren't that, people who aren't interested necessarily in becoming famous or becoming widely read or anything like that, who just, really love to write and want to share what they've written. They can do that. They can hit a button and upload it to Amazon and send it to their friends and family, and maybe even eventually meet real readers through a blog or something like that. And for many people, that might be enough to kind of scratch the itch that they have to write their story down, to tell their story to other people. All along this book tour, actually, I've been meeting people, cab drivers, the guy that works at the Hertz rental car place, and I tell them, introduce myself and say, I'm a writer, I wrote a book, and they're all like, oh yeah, I wanted to write a book one time, or, I've been thinking about doing this science fiction novel that I'd like to write. And so it makes me happy in a way that there's a place now where people like that might be able to, write something, and it doesn't have to necessarily clear every hurdle along the way towards, being published by a big publisher and coming to a bookstore and being on a shelf like this. But on the other hand, I worry about it. My students in particular, they're young, they're eager and hungry the same way that I was when I was their age. And I know that if I had had the option of self-publishing something in my early 20s, I would have done it. I had a book that I had written. I thought it was really good. We had it out to other editors at publishing houses, and they were turning it down for reasons that at the time I believed were totally stupid. And I was sure that if it was just out in the world, that everyone would love it. And I'm really glad now, in retrospect, 10 years later, even that didn't happen. That I did not, just upload it to the internet and try to do it that way. Partly because I never would have written this book if I had done that. I think part of the process of writing is to write a lot of books that don't quite work, and then eventually get to something that really does work. And also because now, I can very proudly say that this is my first novel, and I don't have to have those other books kind of like haunting me from my past. I think the publishing world is fascinating. My wife's an editor, so I have a sort of an insider appreciation, I think, of what she does all day. She and many of her friends work in publishing as well, so I get to see sort of what their efforts are. And I can see how from the outside it might seem as if they are sort of middlemen, right? That this idea that a writer writes a book and then the reader reads the book and all the people in the middle are just, kind of interfering somehow. I think is completely ridiculous. And now that I've been through through the process, I can really see for firsthand how important all those steps in the middle are. My publisher at Viking has been incredible. My editor made huge suggestions about the book that helped me fix problems in it that I was not, I couldn't find a way to fix myself, and I had tried before she saw it. My agent did the same thing and really helped to kind of help me craft the book a little bit so that it would be something that publishers would look at. And then right on down the line, I mean, from the amazing cover design by a woman named Alison Forner at Penguin, which I could never have done on my own, and helps. I think is really kind of eye-popping, catchy, and then even the interior design, the font changes from section to section in the book, which is such a thoughtful thing. I never would have really done that, and the copy editing alone, actually, I could write like a whole essay about. The copy editing for the book took me probably months. The people at Viking went through every single fact, every single proper noun in the book, basically, and had me verify everything and make sure everything was accurate, and caught a lot of mistakes that I never, again, would have been able to catch on my own, just because it's such an overwhelming process. And those people are very, very valuable professionals, and they're really, I think, serve a hugely important role in books. And the average reader doesn't need to know that. At the end of the day, they want to believe that the writer just writes this amazing book and it comes out and it's perfect. And I'm okay with that, fantasy, but the reality of it is that I think even the most, widely respected authors get a lot of help behind the scenes. When I first was trying to get someone to publish the novel, one of the reactions I heard from people in the publishing industry was that nobody really cares about writers, or at least nobody cares about us as much as we care about ourselves, which is probably true. And what I eventually realized was that it's really a book about so much more than just writers and writing. It's really a book about writers are people who are seeking the truth, and people who are trying to deceive us, and those are very sort of universal human experiences. So I think it's even if you aren't particularly interested in writing yourself, it's still a book that anybody should be able to relate to. And I think ultimately what I hope it gets to by the end of the book is it's sort of about how we all tell ourselves stories about our own lives, how we take the things that happened to us in the past, and we even when we're attempting to be totally straight about it, even when we're trying to be non-fictional about it, we remember things differently. We fictionalize. Our memories are faulty, and so things come back that we didn't necessarily happen the way that we remembered them happening originally, or that or we remember them differently than they happened originally. And eventually, you tell yourself these stories over and over again, and eventually the stories supplant the truth. And this happens to me all the time. I'll be, my wife has a much better memory than I do, and I'll constantly, I'll tell some story like, oh, do you remember 3 years ago we went to this place on our way to your parents' house and we did such and such, and she'll reply, those were 3 totally separate incidents that happened like a year and a half apart, and I've, my brain, I guess, just sort of fictionalizes everything and pushes it all together into one story because those pieces seem to fit together. So anyway, I think that's hopefully what the whole effect of the book is.